save my babe. I will go to see my boys again. The crone will light my way. Alyssa Velaryon. Fire and Blood, Jaehaerys and Alysanne, their triumphs and tragedies. Once the new High Septon had arrived in Old Town, completed his vigil within the Starry Sept, and had been duly anointed in the service to the Seven, setting aside both his earthly name and all worldly ties, he bestowed upon His Grace the King and Queen Alysanne a blessing during a solemn public ceremony. By then the Kingsguard and a company of retainers had also joined the royal party, prompting His Grace to make the journey home by the way of the Dornish Marches and the Stormlands. Stops at Horn Hill, Nightsong, and Blackhaven followed. It was the last of these that Queen Alysanne found the greatest delight. Though Blackhaven was a small and unassuming castle, compared to the great castles of the realm, Lord Dondarrion proved a gracious host, with his son Simon, gifted with the high harp. By night, he entertained the king and queen with mournful songs of doomed lovers and fallen kings. The queen was so charmed by his performance that the royal party remained at Blackhaven longer than first intended. They were still there when a raven arrived from Storm's End, bearing grievous news. Their mother, the Dowager Queen Alyssa Velaryon, lay at the point of death. Vermithor and Silverwing took wing, carrying the king and queen with haste to Storm's End, that they might reach their mother's bedside without delay. The rest of the royal party continued overland by way of Stonehelm, Crow's Nest and Griffin's Roost, under the command of Sir Giles Morrigan, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. The mighty fortress of Storm's End, the seat of House Baratheon, was built around a single colossal tower, the great Drum Tower that Durran Godscreef had raised in the Age of Heroes, to defy the wrath of the Storm God himself. It was there, high above the castle, with only the Maester's chambers and the rookery above them, that Jaehaerys and Alysanne came upon their mother. Queen Alyssa lay sleeping, drenched in sweat upon a bed fouled by the smell of urine, her body wasted until she seemed little more than an old crone, were it not for the swollen belly that remained. A maester stood vigil beside her, together with a midwife and 3 bedmaids, each wearing a darker expression than the last. Outside the bedchamber waited Lord Rogar, slumped in his seat, drunk and overcome with despair. When Jaehaerys demanded to know why he was not with his wife, the Lord of Storm's End growled. "The stranger's in that room. I can smell him." Maester Kyrie explained that only a cup of wine laced with sweet sleep had granted the Dowager Queen this fleeting respite from her agony. For hours beforehand, he said, she had been racked by unimaginable agony, unbearable pain. She was screaming so, one of the servants added. Every bit of food we gave her come back up, and she was having awful pains. Tears filled Queen Alysanne's eyes. "She was not due," Queen Alysanne said in tears. "Not yet. Not for another full moon's turn. This is no labour, my lords. Something tore inside her. The babe is dying, or will be dead soon. The mother is too old. She has no strength to push, and the babe is twisted around. It's no good. They'll be gone by first light, both of them. Begging your pardons." Maester Kyrie offered no argument. He explained that a strong draught of milk with a poppy had already been prepared to ease the Queen's suffering. Though it carried as much risk as hope, it might preserve her Grace's life, but it might just as likely end it, and the child she carried would almost certainly perish. When Jaehaerys asked what course remained, the Maester answered, "For the Queen, nothing. She's beyond my powers to save. There is a chance, a slight chance, that I could save the child. To do so, I would need to cut open the mother and remove the child from her womb. The babe might live or not. The woman will die." The Maester's words brought fresh bouts of tears to Queen Alysanne's eyes. Jaehaerys, however, answered only in a heavy voice. "The woman is my mother, and a queen." With that he turned and left the chamber once more. Outside he hauled Rogar Baratheon to his feet and led him back into the room, where he instructed Maester Kyrie to repeat all that he had said. She is your wife, King Jaehaerys reminded Lord Rogar harshly. It is for you to say the words. Lord Rogar, the histories tell us, could not bring himself to look upon his wife, nor would the words come until the king seized him roughly by the arm and gave him a shake. Save my son, Rogar told the Maester. Then tearing himself free, he fled the chamber once again. Maester Kyrie lowered his head in silent acknowledgement before sending for his blades. Many of the chronicles that have reached us claim that Queen Alyssa woke before Maester Kyrie could begin his grim work. Though racked with pain and seized by violent convulsions, she wept with joy at the sight of her children beside her. When Queen Alysanne explained what the Maester intended to do, she gave her consent. Save my babe, she whispered. I will go to see my boys again. The crone will light my way. It's a comforting thought that these were Dowager Queen Alyssa's final words. Regrettably, not every account agrees. Some instead record that her grace never regained consciousness before Maester Kyrie opened her belly. On one matter, however, every source is in accord. From the first cut until the babe's first cry echoed through the chamber, Alysanne never once let go of her mother's hand. The child was a girl, born so small and weak that midwife and maesters alike did not believe she would survive. She surprised them both, as she would surprise many others in her time. Archmaester Galdane on Jocelyn Baratheon, Fire and Blood, Jaehaerys and Alysanne, their triumphs and tragedies. Lord Rogar did not receive the second son for whom he had prayed. Instead, the child proved to be a daughter, born so weak and frail that neither the midwife nor the maester believed she would live. In that, she confounded them both, as she would confound many others in years to come. Only days later, after he'd recovered sufficiently from his grief to give the matter thought, did Rogar Baratheon bestow the girl the name Jocelyn. Before any of that, however, Lord Rogar was forced to face a far less welcome arrival. Dawn had only just begun to break, and Queen Alyssa's body had scarcely grown cold when Vermithor stirred from the place where he laid coiled within the yard. Raising his head, the great dragon loosed a mighty roar that roused Storm's End from its sleep. He had caught the scent of another dragon drawing near. A heartbeat later, Dreamfyre swept down from the sky, the silver crest along her back glinting beneath the crimson light of the dawn as her pale blue wings beat overhead. Rhaena Targaryen had come to make amends with her mother. Rhaena's arrival had come too late. The Dowager Queen was already gone, though the king assured her there was no need to look upon their mother's mortal remains. Rhaena would not be dissuaded. Pulling back the bedclothes that covered the body, she looked upon the work Maester Kyrie had done. Only after a long silence did she turn away, kissing her brother upon the cheek, before embracing her younger sister. It is said the two queens remained in one another's arms for some time. Yet when the midwife placed the newborn babe before Rhaena, she refused to take the child. Where is Rogar? She asked. She found Lord Rogar below in the great hall, seated with his young son Bormund upon his lap, surrounded by his brothers and sworn swords. Rhaena Targaryen strode through the gathering without pause until she stood before him, whereupon she unleashed a torrent of curses. Her blood is on your hands, she raged at him. Her blood is on your cock. May you die screaming. Rogar Baratheon met the accusations with outrage. What are you saying, woman? This is the will of the gods. The stranger comes for us all. How could it be my doing? What did I do? You put your cock in her. She gave you one son. That should have been enough. Save my wife, you should have said. But what are wives to men like you? With that, Rhaena reached out, seized Rogar by the beard, and dragged his face close to her. Hear this, my lord. Do not think to wed again. Take care of the whelps my mother gave you, my half-brother and half-sister. See they want for nothing. Do that, and I will let you be. If I should ever hear whispers of you taking some other poor maid to wife, I will make another Harrenhal of Storm's End, with you and her inside it. After Rhaena had swept from the hall and returned to her dragon in the yard, Lord Rogar and his brothers laughed amongst themselves. She is mad, he declared. Does she think to frighten me? Me? I did not fear the wrath of Maegor the Cruel. Should I fear hers? When the laughter had passed, he drank a cup of wine, calling for his steward to seek arrangements for his wife's burial and dispatch his brother Sir Garin to invite the king and queen to remain for a feast of celebrating the birth of his daughter. King Jaehaerys returned to the capital from Storm's End a much sadder man. The most devout had chosen the High Septon he had hoped for. The doctrine of exemptionalism was now destined to become one of the core tenets of the faith, and an understanding had been forged with the mighty House Hightower of Oldtown. Yet all of those triumphs had been rendered hollow by the death of his mother. Jaehaerys was not a man to dwell upon his grief, as he would so often throughout his long reign. The king set aside his sorrow and devoted himself once more to the governance of the Seven Kingdoms.